Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Wednesday, October 18th Design Review Commission meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Killian.
I'm here.
Commissioner Cothran.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Weiss.
I'm here.
And Chair Gorney.
I am here.
We have a quorum. For the record, Commissioner Volkman will not be in attendance this evening.
Okay, we have no consent calendar today, so our first item is public communications. If anybody wishes to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, now's the time to do it. I think everybody here is with an agenda item. Haley, want to speak about something, anything at all? No? Okay. I'm going to call the first item, public hearing Y17-073, the Walled Single Family Residential Addition. Second time we've seen this project.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Haley Crawford, Associate Planner here with the City. Tonight I will be presenting a request for design review approval of a single-family residential addition at 2416 Casa Way. This is application number Y17-048. So the project is located on the eastern edge of Casa Way, and it is zoned single-family R10. The project site is a 11,550 square foot lot containing an existing single-family home, roughly 1,400 square foot home. The addition is for a 1,612 single-story garage at the rear of the property, shaded here in that site plan below, and the addition is conforming to all zoning regulations. The addition will be used as an antique auto storage, shown here on the floor plan, and there will be 4 different garage door throughout the garage to allow for access to that. This project was previously before the DRC on August 2nd of this year, and in consideration of some of the comments regarding the mass and the kind of overall bulk and height of the addition, the applicant has made some revisions, which I'll be going through now. The top image here shows what was presented back in August, and then the image below shows what is proposed tonight. The second story storage space has been eliminated, so the addition is now a single story addition, and that brings the height down from just under 22 feet to about 16 feet. There's still the need for a lift space at the easternmost edge of the garage, and that is why the height remains a little bit taller on that side. There are also 2 dormer windows that have been incorporated into the design to kind of add some articulation to this facade and to help kind of give some visual relief there. Here's the section. Again, the previously proposed design is on top, and the one that we're looking at tonight is on the bottom. You see here that those 2 dormer windows do span the entire depth of the proposed garage. I'll now span through the rest of the elevations. The previously proposed design will be in the top corner, and then what is being proposed tonight is the larger image. So looking here at the front elevation, because the second story has been eliminated, you no longer see that mass sticking up over the front, and the 2 windows in the front, therefore, have also been eliminated. Looking at the left side elevation, which faces the site's private yard, again, the second story has been eliminated, so you just have those 2 dormer windows, and then the easternmost side of it with the double height space for the lift. And then I will end with the rear elevation here. Again, you can see how that mass has been brought down with the elimination of that second story. The colors and materials haven't changed since the last time. They're still proposing a white stucco with a blue painted trim and a light gray composite roof, and that'll match the existing home. So given the changes tonight, staff is recommending that the DRC approve the proposed addition, subject to the conditions of approval contained in the draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Anybody have questions for staff today on this one? Marilyn, you're thinking?
Yeah, I am thinking. These shutters that are on the front window are sort of the only color that's there in the blue trim. Is that just a flat panel, or is there any decorative nature to those shutters? Do you know?
I believe, and the homeowner's here tonight, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're existing, so they will just be painted the blue to match the other trim around
Is
the
there a
house.
photo anywhere of the existing house that I have missed or just didn't notice this
I
time?
don't believe it was included
No, I don't think we have
tonight.
one. Because the reason I asked the question is that it appears that the garage door fronts have some sort of raised panel or something, it seems to me,
Mhm.
which is decorative in nature, and the house is very simple. So it would seem to me that the shutters, at least these shutters in front, should follow suit, and that maybe they should be changed to go with the side, or just to dress it up a little.
Sure.
It's pretty plain. Also, is there any lighting? I don't see anything.
There, I believe, and I can go back to I believe there's some sconces proposed along that facade. I
On the
believe
garage facade?
On the garage facade, and I can confirm that with the applicant.
There's nothing on the rendering.
I know in
Um,
in the previous design, I believe there was, and
Maybe the client would like to answer.
We'll-
Yeah.
We'll get to
Okay,
the
just
applicant in a second.
Just put it in the thought thing, and later you can answer those. It was just a question. We can do it later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Ryan?
Haley,
Yeah.
the applicant indicates that they're putting in a driveway and they're gonna put it into the CC2 detail from the city of Walnut Creek.
Mhm.
Do they hold them to that? And the reason I'm asking, there's some flares and so forth that are shown on the driveway detail. Is that typical to that's what they have to install?
Yeah, so this has been reviewed by our traffic engineering department, will ensure that that's installed to their standard.
Okay, so including the flares is what they would have to put in, or is that just up to them, or?
I mean, I believe so, because I believe that's what the standard calls for. I don't believe there's curb and gutter and sidewalk in this location, so I don't know if that affects it.
Okay, and is there options to where if it's too tight and doesn't work, they can just go straight in, or is this typically what they have to put in?
To my knowledge, that's what they have to put in.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I would go back, actually, thought Brian was gonna ask this question, but I was gonna ask if there was any enhancement of the landscape. There's a few little bushes, but there doesn't look like much of anything's being done.
Yeah, so there's some bushes that are kind of proposed to enhance the existing front landscape. I know that the homeowner has kind of some plans just to generally spruce up the yard.
Is
but
there some landscape plan that I've missed either? There's no landscape plan. And they're
There's
not
no
required
landscape plan
to?
included with the
They're not required to do
proposal.
that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
At this point, if the applicant wants to do a presentation, come on up. Make sure we get your name again for the record.
Hi, I'm Joni Larson, the designer and drafter. I have a proposed option that I've come up with since I submitted these drawings, and I believe that it enhances the building. I have,
We'll take a look at it. This is an easy one, so.
Thank you.
Thanks. Make sure you tell us what the differences are, so we know.
okay. So what I've done
see
is
what you have.
taken the addition and raised the roof line 18 inches. And the reason I did that, because in the previous rendition, I had the ridges match up. And I started thinking, that's gonna be so hard for the builders to get the exact pitch, the exact height, and the truss company to all coordinate it. Plus, I think it needs to be broken up. It's just so long and linear with that continuous roof ridge line. So, raising it up would break that up. And it would allow for more storage for my client. So you can see from on the perspective views, the lower one is more of like a little bit of an aerial view where you can view where that will pop up just enough so they can build it easier, and it gives it relief too.
Have you kept the dormers at the same elevation, or are they popped up with the roof?
They had to pop up along with it,
It's
because
18
they
inches
sunk
higher.
when I raised the
Well,
roof.
yes, I understand.
What's the number on that height now?
17, 8. Well, that is, okay, 17.8, oh, shoot. On the highest pitch where the lift is, and then the peaks, the dormers are actually 17.9.
So other questions that we have for the applicant?
I
One
had
at a time?
questions about where the roofs were meeting anyway, so.
Okay. Brian, you have specific questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Starting, I have questions about the driveway. You had, it's on the plans, it indicated you're gonna install this by that. And the reason I'm bringing that up is, there's an elm tree out there, and you didn't really accurately locate where it is. It's closer to your proposed driveway. And if you have to put in the driveway with the flares, I think there's gonna be a conflict between that and the elm tree. So I don't know what you're planning there. So I just wanted to, how you were going to address that issue.
Yeah, the elm tree is over far enough. It's not.
Well, I
that
don't know. When
close.
I went out and looked at it, it's not where you're showing it. It's closer to the driveway. And if you have to put in a 3 or 5 foot flare, you may be getting into where then you're cutting some of the major support roots of the elm tree. So that's why I'm
Okay.
raising that question.
Okay.
Not that that elm tree is, has to stay, you may want it there, but again, there's a conflict that hasn't been addressed on the plans. The other question I have is on your driveway. How are you treating drainage? What I see is a note that you have some, I guess, agreement with the neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the drainage is, you have right now some current downspouts and everything that are going toward the proposed driveway. And then you're concreting basically the whole side of the yard and the rear. And I don't know where all that water's going to. It seems like you have a very concentrated flow down to that rear corner.
The owner wants to address it.
How you doing? During the heavy rains, there's nothing in the back lot. It went over onto the neighbor's landscape, and that's what the problem with that was. With the driveway going down, there's a curb against her side.
Yeah, get to the mic.
Introduce yourself.
Just so we know.
Ron Wald, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a curb on the driveway on her side. It'll all drain out the back into a drainage area that goes off to the southeast corner of the property.
Of your property?
Her property.
I talked to her about that. She's quite happy about that, so.
So you're taking all the water that's coming down this new driveway and it's gonna cross over and go into her property on some sort of a
Not-
drain
It goes to the back corner of the property.
of your property?
And then she has a drainage that goes across the back, it'll enter there and go across the back. So it won't interfere with her at all.
Okay.
Is the city okay with that?
We'll find out.
All right, I'll just move on. I have 2 more other questions. It's kind of narrow. Did you have the ability, or did you look at sliding the garage, I don't know where your north arrow is, but closer to the center of the property that would allow you a little bit more room to get in and out of the garage?
He has antique cars, and they're a lot smaller than the average car. We accommodated for the average sized car to get in and out at the back, the rear garage door. And as you can see on the original, on the set of plans, on the site plan, I believe, there's the traffic engineer approved that could be a garage, because there was ample room to back out.
You're talking about the lift area now?
Right, so
Right.
he can, so that can be.
Yeah, I'm not concerned
designated.
about that area. It's the 2 side garage doors that if you're bringing cars in and out.
Cars
is
are
that
11 feet long, I can pull straight in, back out, and go, not a problem.
on that, so, okay. And then my last question, it was kind of asked before, but are you, on your plans, you're showing some landscape on the front, is that what you're proposing as part of this application
It's all gonna be landscaped, yes.
on that? Okay,
I kinda wanna talk to their neighbors and see what they'd like or what they would like to see out there, so it's not an eyesore or anything. So
I-
I'll talk to them about it.
okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? I have a couple, so.
Go ahead.
Marilyn?
Well, actually, we'd asked you last time about sconces on the outside of the building, and you said you hadn't selected any yet. Have you done that, Young?
We haven't, but there will be sconces on each side of the garage doors,
A pair on either,
like
a pair on,
like-
on,
Well, it's not a pair.
a pair on the first one, and then, well, one on the left, one in between, and one in between.
There's 4.
So 3 and probably just 3.
thank you, and none on the other elevations?
On the rear elevation, there definitely would be. And then on the south north elevation, on the other side of the garage doors,
North is the side that's facing most of the lot?
yes.
Okay. And you're proposing the same sort of sconces all the way around?
I'm not sure, that hasn't been decided yet. But he's on a budget, so they won't be fancy.
I understand. All right, thank you.
Marilyn?
That answered that question. I guess my question about the landscape is, it would seem to me that a decision about what you want to propose should be on this plan. And it sounds like it's not gonna be anything too elaborate, but, you know, the drawing just has a few kind of bushes on it, doesn't tell me anything. And I guess maybe you don't have to do that, I'm not sure, based on this kind of an application. But it would certainly be nice when you're improving a property to do something towards its aesthetic look, not just its interior look, and that's why I'm asking you.
Okay, on the rendering that you saw that was presented, that shows what we had in mind. A couple taller bushes at the corners, in plant with flowering bushes, and then down that wall have bushes in a row that don't get real big, but can grow against the house. And then once you get to the garage, it doesn't matter because
And what are you
people
doing
can't-
with the front? I mean, it's meant to look like
Grass.
it's a lawn, it will be grass.
Yeah, isn't that, did you say you wanted grass?
It's gonna be a lawn out front.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the neighbor suggested a little white fence across there, which is fine with me. And then,
You're speaking from there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if
He-
you're gonna speak, we need you to
She has
come
to
to the
repeat.
I'll
mic.
interpret. He
Please.
said he wants grass
Uh-huh.
and maybe a little white picket fence, if the neighbors want it. He's gonna consult with the neighbors.
Okay.
Okay. A couple questions. So before you had a two-story, and so the amount of storage you have now by taking the stair out is now sufficient in the garage? You're okay with the storage amounts? The applicant is?
no, but I don't have a choice.
Okay. Now, on the, and I just want to make sure that the applicant, the desire is to not have any windows on the back of the building facing the other yard because of privacy and keeping the cars safe, et cetera,
Correct.
Okay. And then you said that the owner's on a budget and wants to build this thing efficiently. And I'm assuming that the dormers are there just to get light into the garage down below.
Not only, he'll also be able to put some storage up there.
Okay, so the idea, I mean, you were talking about budget, and in order to build that with the beamwork and the extra flashing and the roofing and everything, just seems like an awful lot of extra work if it was only for light.
Well, we're trying to get it to pass through design review, and
Right.
I felt that you would like it better with dormers up there to give it some architectural interest. And
Did
Yeah,
you
we
look
could
at
have one.
at the form of the dormers? I mean, it just, you know, that kind of horizontal window, they're kind of floating in space, they're very tall. They're not really dormers because the roof goes all the way across. Did you study the window shape at all and the way they fit in there? It's just sort of, they seem oddly
Well-
proportioned to me.
Oh, okay. I liked the proportion of the windows because it brings in light. It's simple.
Mhm.
If you get it too small, it's gonna look silly.
Mhm.
It needs to make a statement.
Okay.
That's how I like design.
That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is that it?
Yes. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? Anybody? Neighbors? Anybody? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yes.
we did notice that there is no curb gutter and sidewalk out along the front.
Okay.
So we do have our city engineer representative who could possibly talk to what would be required in terms of the driveway approach out there, if you'd like to have Ryan come up.
Brian, would you like to know for edification?
I think we should.
I would, because the spacing, you know, if they are required by this, it would affect the layout of the driveway, so. I like to make my engineers feel welcome. So.
Do something while you're here.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ryan Cook, City of Walnut Creek Engineering Department. So to answer the question regarding the driveway, it was our traffic engineering department's requirement to include that. Given that we no longer require frontage improvements, the driveway was still included. And to address your concerns regarding the trees and everything, it will require an encroachment permit and will go through our engineering department to verify that it does get installed correctly and fits in there well and matches to the existing adjacent to it.
Well, what happens, for example, they're showing it the 10-foot driveway only 2 feet off the property line, and you're showing a minimum of a 3-foot flare. So what happens there?
Well, it'll be kind of as a field of fit in the field type of situation for that one.
So they don't
Given
have
our
to
requirements.
necessarily meet this dimensions? And
Not
detail?
necessarily. It's especially since there is an existing sidewalk there, and that is primarily for ADA path to travel. With the it flaring behind the driveway.
Okay, where I'm going, you know, I don't really care whether they have to put in this driveway detail or not. What I'm just trying to, is whether it's gonna work and whether they're gonna be having to chop down that tree or not, and all of a sudden, we have something different than what's shown on the plans.
No, it'll definitely make sure that it stays away from the tree, and we'll have something there that works and looks good.
Maybe just I'll jump in. So I'm not sure traffic engineering understood that there was no curb gutter and sidewalk out there right now. So that detail meshes with a curb gutter and
Yeah.
sidewalk. Is that right? So
Correct.
I'm assuming that detail would not be required out there on Casa Way.
And that's something that, to what extent we follow that or scale it back as necessary based upon the site condition, considering there is no curb gutter sidewalk existing.
Okay, so there's
So-
some flexibility, you can work with the applicant.
That is
to-
correct, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any answer if the city's all right with all the drainage going off property?
Good question.
Yes. I know some of it will be drained in landscape from some of the roof leaders, and then the other, the more flat work for the concrete. It follows its natural drainage course, which was always to that southeast corner of the property.
All right,
But
thank
the
you.
fact that it's more concentrated now is okay?
Overall, it's a fairly small amount. We haven't had any past drainage issues with that area, so
Okay,
we're not too concerned.
thank you.
All right.
Before we comment, Brian, you were not here for the first meeting on this, right?
Correct.
Okay, you know, we really struggled with this because we felt there were other solutions to the site plan, that 16 feet from the property line was too close, that it was a big box with no windows in it, ill proportion, you know, and so we felt that there were other places that could be on the site. We encouraged the applicant to look at that and to make more changes to the architecture. And so, you know, I think in my opinion, obviously making it mostly one story is a better solution, but we are design review, and our thing was to review the whole thing for its architectural integrity. But I wanted to give you a little history
Okay.
to what we had said in the last meeting. On that note, if anybody wants to comment,
Well, I guess I'll start. This is, you know, a simple project for the most part, and I understand that you have really been working with the neighbors, and I really commend you for that. I mean, that's a big part, and I think that's a big part of what design review is about, is to make sure you play well with others. I'm finding that you are really within, you've pulled back a great deal from skirting the edge of a lot of the things that sort of set off alarm bells. So I think that's all right. I do find it a little disappointing that you haven't given us a lot of the design details, whether they are low-key and inexpensive or not. In the end, there's not that much for us to be able to say that's all right, like the landscaping or the lighting. I mean, I'd like to know that you're going to use lighting that shields the neighbors and, you know, the night sky from the light that comes in. And we'd like to, you know, I'd like to get a better feel for that, but, and I don't know how much we can really sort of ask that a lot of the existing house be dressed up, because this is an addition and not a major thing. So I think I'd probably be all right with seeing the project move forward, but asking for some staff review of some of those details that are not included on these drawings.
You know, I'll just say that is a standard condition, that the lights not shine off-site, so we can certainly take a look at that if that's the commission's desire.
Marilyn?
Yeah. I think we're sort of stuck in a funny position, which I wish we weren't, which is that I think it would be nice if we could say, you're gonna build this nice addition for your purposes, but the house really needs some attention. However, I don't think it's really getting the attention. And so there's something about it that makes me feel like there's kind of a disconnect here, because you'll have a new section, which clearly, if you just look at the plan and cut off the existing part and look at the new part, they kind of look like two different houses. And I think that the new part looks like it's got better detail and attention if it gets built the way it looks right here, and renderings are not always what we should be looking at. So that's disappointing to me, because I think things look too simple on the rest of the house, and I would think that if you're gonna go to the trouble to build this addition and make it look a little dressier, then I think you should do the same thing with the house, which is why I asked about the shutters and I asked about the landscape, and I think Daphne's correct when you say, well, we don't know what we're gonna do with the lighting, and maybe we'll put up a picket fence, but we don't know if we're gonna put, these are details that really make a difference to the neighborhood, the upgrading of the neighborhood, and I would love to see some of those things committed to in order to refine and make the project an upgrade to the neighborhood. So it's correct that we can only go so far as to what we can require. Is that right? We can suggest but not require. Or is that wrong?
That's pretty much correct. I mean, the reason we're coming to the Design Review Commission this evening is because the drawings were not done by a registered architect. The reason it's subject to design review at all is because of the overall floor area. So the charge of the commission is really to
Right.
guard against mass bulk.
Right, so
Ca-
at staff, if it
character
had
of the
not had to
neighborhood.
come here, at staff, would they have looked at the quality of the design or the quality of the details or things like that? Or was it just like, it doesn't really matter?
We would have, if it would have gone to staff level, we would have certainly looked at the overall mass bulk, privacy
really what
issues,
it is.
window placements, not so much the
Okay.
existing home and
Okay, so then
landscaping.
instead, I will make only my summarized comment, which is, I would love to see the whole house look as if it is upgraded, not just the addition. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but I'm suggesting that for the quality of what you're doing to the neighborhood and how you want to take pride in the house, that it gets some detail work that gives it a little more updated look. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but I certainly would like to suggest it. I think just having two little shutters in the front and a little bit of blue paint on your trim, it's still a plain house that probably could use a little upgrading, and just a few bushes here and there doesn't quite make it with me. If you're gonna go to the trouble, I would suggest to the client, if it were my job, I would say, let's do a little more to really, dress up the house and add to the neighborhood. Because once you do it, the next door neighbor will probably do it, or the one across the street will do it, and it's good for all of us. So that's just my opinion, and take it as you wish. I just would love to have seen a few of those details upgraded, and maybe going forward, you'll think about it. Okay? Thank you.
Brian?
I think for what this is, it's okay. where you're doing the addition is back behind, and other than your neighbor on the right-hand side, who
Oh, yes,
doesn't
yeah.
appear to have a concern, or we haven't heard from
Oh,
them,
yes, yeah.
you know, it's not too much other impact on the public at all, at large going by. So I'm okay with that. Regarding the landscaping, again, I would either go one of two ways. Not show anything on the plans, but if you're gonna show something and there's a record of it, then you're gonna have to show what it is. Because again, 4 dots on the plans, and whether you end up putting them on or not, and then there's some dispute, and they say, well, what's on the plans, what are those circles? There's nothing to indicate what they are. So if you do plan on doing it, and you want it on the plans, show 2 thuyas for whatever, you know, and the grass, but if you don't have to do it, maybe it's simpler to just take all that off the plans, and then you landscape your yard, you know, when you get around to it. But if it's on the plans, let's do it right instead of just some circles. I'm ready to, you know, approve this project. Again, I just want to make sure, though, you know, some of these details with the trees and everything, I don't know how important that elm tree is, but you may run into, you know, that you have to excavate down 8 inches to get your base rock and your 4 inches of concrete and everything, if you're coming into some big roots of those elm trees. So again, I just want to make sure the driveway works and you're not facing them with some other problem, so that's why I'm raising those issues. But if you don't have to do that flare and everything, you know, you may be okay. So other than that, I would agree on the lights again. We don't want some lights too high and shining over the neighbor's fence. You know, at some point you have a 6-foot fence, so you're probably over the fence right in, I don't know what their window location is, so that would be my concern. But other than that, I'm in favor of the project.
I just had to ask, how about the extra height on the roof versus not? Nobody's
I'm
really
okay
commented
with
on
that. That didn't bother me.
Yeah, no, the one comment that I had on the drawings coming in was the roofs aren't gonna meet well where they are, so.
You know, I'm gonna be very brief, because we've spent a lot of time beating this thing up, and, I was concerned about the roof plan, that was answered. I just think, I'm okay with the old house, it's just a little ranch house. I just think that, I'm looking at this ginormous addition on the back, and I think there were better solutions in the site plan, I think there were better solutions in the architecture. I think the dormers are horribly ill-proportioned and don't look like any dormer that makes sense to me at all. I don't like the way they're built, I don't like the way they go over the roof of the existing house. And so I just, you know, I appreciate the fact the scale's lower, but I still think that the architecture is awful. Anybody want to,
And with that,
make us, want me to make a resolution?
yeah, why don't you do it? You don't want
I'll
to.
make a motion that we approve
No, here. I was busy looking for it.
Y17-048. Is that, am I the wrong one?
273.
No, 43,
Oh.
it's 073.
171, 273.
273-004. With the
Oh,
condition.
that's parcel number.
That's
No,
parcel
it's
number.
Y
Okay, so-
17 073.
3.
Okay. Whatever it is. And
I asked for some staff, particular staff over.
with the conditions that the applicant submit to staff, cut sheets of the light, so there's, you quantify or indicate exactly what lights are being put on the plans. And if the landscaping is to remain, that they submit a plan that indicates exactly the count and the type of plant material that they're going to install. That's my approval, or my motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Killen, you said the landscape plan should be submitted if they want to go ahead with the landscaping.
If they want to put landscaping on the drawings, then they need to
Do a proper one.
submit a plant list and a count.
And then the other provision was the,
Provide cut sheets of the lights.
Light-
that
the
they're
lighting.
going to.
Which may be a standard engineering condition, I'm not sure if it is or
all right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Killian,
Yes.
Commissioner Cothran,
Yes.
Commissioner Weiss.
Yes.
And Chair Gorney.
no.
All right, motion carries 3-1.
Okey-doke.
Okay, on to the next item. Everybody's been waiting for. Okay, this is item number, it's a design review and tree removal at the former Vic Stewart's Restaurant, Y17-045.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Yes.
go on, I just clarify, I work with the applicant's architect. I don't have any relationship with the applicant's owner, and, well, I work with the architect. We're not in a relationship where he's paying me or anything like that, but I just wonder where he's at.
Yeah. I work with a civil engineer too, and
Yeah.
I think we
I don't think you
can
have to
deeply
do
get into conflicts of interest, but I think that we're both
Yeah.
good at this point. You're staying, right?
You can say.
Are you
I'm
staying? Okay. You're pulling your
Clearing up.
papers. I thought maybe we were getting ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, if we can have a staff report,
Oh,
please.
hang on, just
Yeah.
for the record, Mr. Chair, I did check with the city attorney regarding your concern, and he's okay with you acting on the item
Oh.
tonight, so.
If we couldn't have consultants in the room we work with, we'd be in big trouble. Hello, Ozzy.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ozzy Arce, Associate Planner here with the City of Walnut Creek. Tonight we'll be looking at application Y17045, and it is a design review application for the Walnut Creek Depot building remodel and addition. It's at 850 South Broadway. Tonight's purpose is a public hearing to approve of the building remodel and addition. The project overview proposes to demolish about 1,600 square feet of the existing building to accommodate the conversion of an existing restaurant into a 5-tenant retail space. There's a demo and a rebuild portion, plus a construction of an additional 1,413 square feet. So the formal square footage is about 6,936, and it's increasing to about 8,349, a net of 1,413. There are additional architectural features, a new walkway, a new parking lot, striping, trash enclosure, new landscaping, and the removal of 6 on-site trees. I will note that while a portion of the existing building is being demolished, it's being demolished in order to lower the portion of the raised floor so it's even across the entire building. I'll get into that in a little bit later. The project site, again, it's at 850 South Broadway. To the north is an office building and a parking lot. To the east is the Iron Horse Trail, the creek, and a parking lot. And to the south is an access road that leads to that parking lot on the east. And to the west is South Broadway and the newly constructed Broadway Plaza and the Broadway Plaza parking garage, as you can see in that picture. Really quick, the zoning is central retail, and the proposed use is retail sales and rentals. It's permitted provided that within an enclosed building, which is what is being proposed here. The general plan for 2025 is general retail. It's important to note that this building is listed in the city's historic resource list. In our general plan, there is an overlay 5 Iron Horse Trail adjacent to the site. However, nothing from this project conflicts with that overlay. Brief history: the original structure was dubbed the Walnut Creek South Pacific Railroad Passenger and Freight Depot. It was built in 1891 near the intersection of South Broadway and Mount Diablo. By 1960, both passenger and freight service ceased, and therefore in 1971, the current building owner purchased the building from the city with the condition that it be moved but also renovated. And although over the years, in 1982, it was the Devil Mountain Brewing Company, and then in '89, the Vic Stewart's Restaurant took operations until earlier this year when this project moved forward. So while over the years the building has undergone several renovations and restoration efforts, many of the design and architectural features of the original depot still exist today. A cultural resource assessment report, which is one of the attachments submitted along with the materials, concluded that while the depot retains only one of 7 aspects of integrity that contribute to the historic resources eligibility for listing in the California Registrar of Historical Resources, and as such, it is not eligible for that registrar under any criteria. The existing site, really quick, is about 27.5 square feet. There's a 2-story building. There's a train car in the rear that's going to be removed as part of this project. There's an existing trash enclosure adjacent to the building. It's also going to be relocated, a little bit on that later. And there are 30 parking stalls existing. The existing floor plan, like I noted, it's a two-story building. The majority of it is on the first floor. There's a second floor, a storage area accessible through an outdoor stairway. So there's some photos of the existing building. I'm sure we've all driven by it several times, if not been to it. Let me just provide some details. There's a big existing building, has a gabled roof, wood frame, horizontal board-on-board hardwood siding. It's painted gray. There's a wooden deck that runs along the building's west elevation, the frontage. The existing roof is made out of barkwood roof shingles, and the existing building has 3 chimneys. Sorry, there's that trash enclosure that I spoke about and the frontage of the site. So just really quick summary of the proposed building improvements. A portion of the existing building, like I noted, is being demolished in order to lower that portion of the raised floor. It is important to note that the rebuild addition portion will be constructed of identical materials and colors as existing. However, the applicant is proposing a few architectural features to enhance the building in sight, including a new deck, some planter boxes, and wooden railings. Here's the existing west elevation, and as you can tell, that portion, it is not on the same floor as the original structure. And so the project seeks to keep that same roof line, however, rebuild that portion, lower the floor so it's consistent throughout, and then there's the addition to the end. So just some really rough calculations here. So demoing, rebuild, and then the addition for our new square footage. There's some renderings of existing and then proposed and then the colored elevation. The proposed floor plan, therefore, like I mentioned earlier, it's seeking to convert the restaurant use to 5 retail tenant spaces. As the blue is to remain, the red is the demo rebuild portion, and the green is roughly the addition that they're looking to do. A total of 5 proposed, each with their own entrance and exit, creating those 5 tenant spaces that you see here, of varying size. Continuing on with elevations, really the meat of it is this frontage, and really the west elevation and the east, the front and the rear, will consist of the same horizontal board-on-board siding. It's painted gray, again, to match existing siding and color materials. The gable roof will continue and extend towards that rebuilt portion and to the addition. Again, same roof pitch. The project proposes to construct new openings and new Marvin windows to be painted white. There's that brick planter box that runs along the entire frontage. Again, for consistency, all features, the trim, the column, the handrails will be wood and also painted white for consistency. The 3 chimneys will remain and be repainted to match the existing color and for general maintenance. There's that rear elevation, very similar to the front. And the proposed south elevation, this is the area where that has the existing trash enclosure. This will change significantly considering this is the area of the addition. The project will construct, again, same material siding, same color as the existing and the rebuilt portion. I can't emphasize that enough. And then the proposed north elevation, this is the elevation that's really not changing much. The addition's on the other side, the demo and rebuild portion is on the other side, so really this elevation is going to look very much like it does today. Summary of proposed site improvements, new parking layout and striping, new driveways to accommodate the new parking layout, the relocation of the 3 on-site parking meters to accommodate new driveways, new trash enclosure, new landscaping and trees. This site is about 27,500 square feet. There's our site plan. And more specifically, the north side has 22 parking stalls. And there's that new driveway approach. There's the south. And there's the other 8 stalls for a total of 30. Just really quick, parking is a non-issue because the restaurant use has a more stringent parking requirement than the proposed retail use. Parking is a non-issue. Regardless of that, the applicant is still providing the required 30 stalls for a retail establishment nonetheless. 2 new driveways to accommodate the new parking layout. And then the trellis, which is really that kind of a gateway entry into the parking lot, and it serves also as a screen for that south parking lot as well. And again, this material, the brick, the color, the paint will match the main building. So now the trash enclosure, which is kind of fun. I think this is a really unique aspect of this project. The applicant, instead of just building a fairly traditional trash enclosure, they're proposing a trash enclosure that very much complements the architecture of the main building and kind of goes along with the history of the building as serving as a train depot. It's kind of a train switch house, and as you can tell, the light feature as well is proposed. The freestanding trash enclosure will mimic the architecture like I noted, and really it's a nod to the history of the building. The switch lighthouse will not have any noise. It's a feature that the applicant is proposing to complement the history and a nod to the history of the building. There's tree removals. There's 19 trees on site, none of which are highly protected species. They're proposing to remove a total of 9 trees, 6 of which are on site. Again, they are not highly protected tree species, and the removal is due to the high encroachment from construction. We are supportive of this as proposed from a staff level. There are those 6 trees proposed to be removed that are on site, all Canary Island pines. Landscaping proposed, just really high level overview. They're proposing to plant 8 new trees along with shrubs, grasses, ground covers, and those bioretention plantings throughout. Here's the landscaping proposed, showing the new trees. 6 Marina strawberry trees, 1 red myrtle, and then 1 London plane. Signage, no new signage is proposed as part of this application. All existing signage related to the former restaurant use will be removed, and any future signage will be subject to a new master sign program, which would come back to you all for review and approval. So really the staff recommendation is DRC approve of the proposed building and remodel and site improvements to accommodate the conversion of the existing restaurant building into a 5-tenant retail building, including the proposed building architecture, color, and material palette, the tree removals, and the proposed landscaping, subject to the conditions in the draft resolution. And really, staff believes that the proposed upgrades and addition will design of the building and site, and while maintaining the integrity of the building and the building's depot history. Rather than demolishing the entire building and moving forward with a different proposal, the applicant proposes to remodel and upgrade the existing building and refurbish it into a retail establishment, thereby preserving a potential historic resource as listed in the city's inventory. So staff is supportive of the overall proposed project and the project's efforts at preserving the historic resource, and therefore an element of the city's history as well. Therefore, this concludes my presentation, and both the applicant and the building owner are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice, thorough report. Anybody have any questions for staff?
I have one, Ozzy. The sidewalk, I think it's on the plans that they're showing to redo it, but there's no details. Is there a city standard that they need to follow, or can they do whatever they want?
There is a city standard in terms of the width. There is a cross-section provided in the plans that were reviewed by Public Works as well as traffic engineering. So that was
from a
all.
decorative point of view, is there any, like what they're doing on Broadway or whatever, or is it up to the applicant?
As far as like stamped concrete, there is no specific requirement for that. I believe it would just be standard sidewalk concrete that we use.
Okay, thank you.
More questions?
I do have one question. So the purpose is to no longer have a restaurant at all, to have 5 specific retail stores and no restaurant.
Correct.
Yes? Okay, I was just asking. Okay, that's, right now, that's my only question.
One question. If we decide to move this forward today and it goes well, what would the city's normal situation be with lighting? Because there's no lighting design in here, there's no fixtures, there's nothing in there. So I was just wondering if we move it forward, how would you normally deal with that?
I mean, we would review it as part of a standard condition of reviewing lighting. As far as the specifics for this building, I think that's a question that's probably best answered by the applicant.
Okay. You guys aren't going to require photometrics or anything? It's not that deep a project, I'm thinking.
Not at this
Okay,
level.
good. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Thank you. If the applicant would like to make a presentation?
Bill Wood with Walnut Architects. First, I'd like to say thanks staff, because we started this project several months ago, and we were the inaugural project to meet with all the different departments in the conference room, which is kind of unprecedented in all the other projects prior to this. Every department met, and we sat down with a proposed project that's sort of in the direction where you're seeing it right now. And we were able to get a lot of comments from everybody initially right at first glance of the project, which gave us a great opportunity to follow up and not have to go back and forth several times, as you know, through the process, and ended up being a lot more pure of a project. And it was amazing being through all the different cities in this county and other counties around as well, that many times when you have a disparity between the initial meeting with staff, and then by the time 6 months or a year go by and all the different departments have made their comments, when you come back, it ends up being a hodgepodge. This was eliminated this time by allowing all the departments to get all their information out initially, which allowed us to have a lot better perspective of what we needed to do and to retain the integrity of the building. And that was sort of where we were starting from, is to keep the integrity of the building and enhance it. To go back to the reason why we lowered the building again is that the building currently has a restaurant, but it also has a basement. I don't know if you know that. It's partially underground, and that's why that restaurant part has been elevated. It's not conducive at all to do retail use for that the way it is right now. So we felt initially the owner wanted to retain that original integrity of the building that he put there years, 4 decades ago, and be able to bring the street presence back to the building rather than having it at its back, because the way the platform was designed was intended mainly as a restaurant use, and it's tough to have a restaurant use in that regard with a basement to have any kind of articulation in the front that has windows, especially when you have kitchens and sculleries and basements and so forth along there. So I think we've done a great job with staff's help to bring everything together and bring the architecture back, and also incorporate the great things about it is we have 2 potential anchor tenants in this building, that we have separate parking areas for each. So it gives the opportunity for tenants to have drive up to their own use of the building on each end. It also lends itself greatly during construction, which makes it very difficult on rehab buildings in downtown to allow staging, construction parking, and so forth to be at the south end of the building during construction, which won't interfere with the common parking areas on the north side, which is currently sharing with the office building on the north, which can kind of sometimes cause problems during construction. The other aspects as well is the architecture. Again, we try to match everything. We decided to kind of go out on a limb on the trash enclosure to try to incorporate some sense of history that will connect the building together. And the owners, was adamant about having everything on this project relate to not only the original building, but to leave the building itself for some future generations to be able to come here and see what Walnut Creek was all about 125 years ago. Which kind of brings me up to then the public art that we wanted to discuss only briefly tonight. And that was, I know that we're required to have public art on each project comes before you. And tonight we're just asking for some kind of recommendation or suggestions. We would like to use a switch tower as a piece of art. Now, it's probably 3 times the cost of in lieu fee for the for paying the in lieu fee for art and not doing anything. I'm going to pass out some photographs of about a 120-year-old photograph of the original Walnut Creek Depot. And in here, we're trying to bring back that initial switch tower that's going to be adjacent to the switch house. That's the enclosure, probably be the best looking trash enclosure in the city of Walnut Creek. But let me just show you these photographs, and it'll help you get a better picture.
I suppose it's ultimately up to the Arts Commission, I would
It's up to
imagine.
the Arts Commission, but I know that the design review can give some feedback. I know it's putting you in a kind of an unprecedented position, but it's something that, this is a unique site, a unique building, and there isn't very much art in this city that has any historical significance. There's a lot of controversial art projects in this city over the last 20 years, and I feel really strongly about it, and that's why I'm bringing it up. And so the owner especially feels very strongly about it. He wants to leave some kind of a legacy for 50, 100 years from now for the future generations to be able to come here and see what was originally here, because there isn't very much left in the city, especially in this location, since the old spur came through that area. Other than that, I mean, we've had actually a pretty good time with the staff and the city with this project. It's been a fun project to work with, and as an architect, you probably all know that sometimes that can be just very demanding and very challenging, and it actually went very smoothly. And I got to say, it's been a combination of everybody's efforts to come up with a really great project and be very successful, and I think it'll be a great asset to the city. So staff did a great job of explaining everything. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. And there's also Terry Camp is here from Camp and Camp for the landscaping, and Jim Diggins is here from DeBolt Engineering to answer any civil questions. And there is a historical report also that's in your packet.
Yeah, we read it.
And the owner's here as well.
Thank you.
If you have questions.
Great.
Can you speak to the lighting?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
What was that? No, let's
I
do
was leaping
questions.
into questions,
Yeah,
yes.
go ahead. No, please start.
Could you speak to the exterior lighting?
Yes, we were planning on, at the present time, we're in the midst of getting the construction documents put together, and we're working with the electrical engineers, consultants we're working with, to come up with appropriate historical lighting that's appropriate for the building. And so I don't want to be in a hurry to pick those out, and it's easy to just go in a catalog and pick some lights out, but I think that, I don't know, if staff could be appropriate to be able to approve those light fixtures, but we're going to do something that's going to be complementary to the building. The signage is going to come back as a separate application altogether. We've already appropriated on the north side and the south side. The structure itself lends itself for signage there, and I've got some ideas for the future signage of the center 3 tenants that we're going to bring back to you.
Okay, let me press you just a little bit more. So you haven't sort of picked fixtures, I
Haven't actually
understand
picked
that.
pictures, I've looked at them, but I haven't picked
Have
them out.
you thought about sort of, what's going to be lit, what the scheme is likely to be?
Well, generally, we have to have a non-glare. Retail use at night, a lot of times will be generally lit from within. Outside lighting has to be general lighting for pedestrian use, and non-glare, probably reflective light. It brings the era.
So
It's hard because you got.
you're thinking just that sort of that front walkway?
It'll be around the 3 sides, the front and the 2 sides. The rear is probably have security lighting in the back because there's the Iron Horse Trail. The owner's had problems over the years with transients that have walked through there at night, and we always want to make sure that everything stays secure. But for the most part, for the south and the north parking lots, as well as the front facade of the building, faces directly across the street from the Broadway Plaza parking structure. It's quite a contrast between that and this project. You see it almost like the future and the past.
Right.
in
So you're thinking
retrospect.
really functional lighting?
Right,
for the most
absolutely
part.
has to be functional, yeah.
Right, there's no sort of decorative accent lighting?
Yeah, the gas lighting type look is, I don't know if that's gonna work.
Yes.
but-
It was limited in those days. All right, thank you.
Questions?
Not at this point, no.
Maybe your last chance.
Might be my last chance, oh, you never know.
Brian?
Bill, I have some, staying with the signage. A lot of times, the architecture kind of drives the signage, or at least you allow, like you said, you anticipate where it's going to be and you work it into your architecture. And I don't know if I see that, so what I'm worried about is, we approve
Where's it gonna
this, and then
go?
6 months come by and we get this signage guy, and he's worried about his tenant, and we're seeing some signs on the roof, or maybe some blade signs. And I'm afraid that, the coordination is lost because it's out of your control now. So I'm a little bit hesitant, hearing that, we're not even dealing with signage, not knowing if it's gonna go on the roof or wherever. And, you might alter your architecture to do that. So how are you gonna address that?
Absolutely. Several years ago, probably 30 years ago in Danville, we worked on a project that was called Danville's Railroad Center. And also worked on a few other projects that had historical significance in the Danville area. And we took all the original photographs from the actual Danville depot, and we presented a sign program for a building that was similar to this, because it's in the historical area of downtown. We brought some photographs in, and I set this up sort of in the same way so that the signage is consistent with the era of what signage was done 120 years ago. On each end of the building, it's pretty evident that there's room for signage that would be complementary to the building. But in the three tenants in the center of the building, the original 1890s to 1910 signage was actually appropriated on the roof just above the eave line. And I can bring photographs of that and as well down the road. But I'd like to make sure that the signage is designed before you get any kind of consultants that come in with their own signage. I mean, the signage program should be designed so that all they do is implement their name into the sign structure itself, and that'll be integrated into the building.
Okay, so you're planning on coming back for a master sign
Yes.
program as
Right,
opposed to the individual?
Right, as a separate application, yeah.
I believe that's required in the conditions.
Okay,
section.
okay,
That
Right,
comes back.
exactly.
All right, I'm gonna kind of jump around. Let me jump to the trash enclosure.
Okay.
It's kind of a fun, I agree with that, but on the other hand, I'm thinking, it's almost so far away, its own little building and everything, and I don't know if that's good or bad. My first question is, was there any opportunity to put it closer to the building, both from the being able to use it instead of walking half a mile, and a little bit more of a connection to the building?
Yes, we looked at that, and staff even made that comment. Do you want to have a trash enclosure near the entrance? This building is actually it's a four-sided building. The building itself is so visible on all four sides that by putting the trash enclosure up against the building, it poses two problems. One is the exposure for the retail users. They don't want to have a trash enclosure visible on any of the three sides that are going to be exposed for their use. As well as the other opportunity is, looking at the site plan, we felt it was probably better in terms of the character of the center. The train depots never had the switch towers, switch houses, and the switch gear up, except for the switch gear tower up against the building. Many times they would be away from the original building. That's what we're trying to mimic. And also, if you come up Broadway from Newell, we wanted to create something that's just at the beginning of the project that created sort of a monument. There's an entrance to a project right there adjacent to this project. There's a driveway, a large driveway that comes in. We wanted to create where the beginning of this project starts, and then have sort of a monument there for the switch tower as well as the switch house. Then that would also hide the parking lot. And then the landscape architect, he also created a screen wall along Broadway to hide the parking as well. So I didn't want to have the parking lot become the focal point as you drive down the street from the south, because that's where you're going to be entering it most of the time as you enter the project. I'm kind of tired of looking at parking lots as you enter a project anyway, so we were trying to defer some of any of the views of the parking lot by creating the trash enclosure, and that's why it's been created to mimic the switch house, and then put the switch tower adjacent to that with the screening would eliminate all view of the parking lot and make it look fun. And as far as the inconvenience of the trash, I think that's worth it, in my opinion.
Okay. Sidewalk, is that a you or a Terry question?
I'll
Punt that one.
punt that one to Terry.
Okay, well, I still have one for Bill then. parking lot on the north side. Stall number 22. I don't know if you're coming in, you don't have any type of a buffer curbed landscape, and I don't know with a car sticking out there and somebody's going in that driveway approach, how successful that's going to be.
Well, we widened the driveway. Originally, it was about 5 feet narrower. So what we did is we reworked it. So remember, this building was built many years ago, so we have to make everything currently code compliant for ADA. So by creating also the handicap ramp from the entrance of the building down to the main walkway for the retail users, you have many ways to get it around the building. But for vehicular use, we widened that throat by about 30% just for that purpose. Originally, it was.
But again, coming in and then you're making a left, I could just see, a lot of clip fenders. Is there any way, it looks like you might have an opportunity, can you shift all of those 10 bays down 3 feet to where you have a little finger island there to protect that stall?
I think there's enough room at the other end. If you look at where the first stall is on the north side, is that what you're talking about? Just move that down so that it comes to that point, and then give a little buffer there, and then maybe curve the curb around so that it kind of directs the car rather than having the kind of protecting the first stall. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah,
Sure.
just some sort of a.
Yeah, I think that can work.
I don't know. Okay. All right, and then that's all the questions I have on the architecture.
Okay.
But I do have one or two for Terry.
Don't go away, Bill. We'll be a couple more.
You are?
I will, yeah. Terry Camp, landscape architect. I was going to wait for the question.
Oh, okay. I didn't see any detail. I'm seeing it now. I guess, is this going to be the pavers with some banding or something, or what do we get along the public sidewalk?
Well, the public sidewalk is just going to be replaced with the standard city detail. It's a concrete sidewalk. We're not doing anything special out in the public right away.
Oh, you're not, so that's
No.
just plain concrete, okay.
Yes. It's not Broadway Plaza, this section of town, I don't think warrants any special paver treatment out on the right of way. It's got the office building, Safeway. We think it just should follow the city standard.
But you're replacing it though, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and
so it doesn't necessarily have to be pavers, but again, you could do something more than just concrete to elevate it a little bit more. Whether it be some sort of a pattern or something else.
I suppose we should discuss that internally as a design team, whether it be window boxed and do some finishing with it or something's possible.
Okay. Then the landscaping, going back to the trash enclosure. The way I'm reading your plan, it seems like we're just kind of circling 3 sides with oleanders. And I'm wondering if maybe, given Bill's explanation of what he's trying to do there, something lower or something a little bit more fun or something rather than just a evergreen hedge hiding it would be my
I
words.
think we had the flax.
Well, you showed 12 oleanders kind of going around it, or at least on the back and the south side. But my point is, if it is that fun element and you're putting all that money into it, let's not just hide the bottom half of it. And, again, maybe
Fair enough.
something with that.
Okay,
But
we'll look at that.
and I guess that was a question. So, thank you.
Any other questions for landscape while Terry's up?
I'm good.
Marilyn? Okay, thanks, Terry. Any more questions for Bill?
You're
If I
raring to
can-
go.
I want to just respond to Brian's question on the sidewalk, because that had been brought up, and I probably neglected to talk about what we had discussed from staff, city engineer, and so forth. Because there's going to be so few pedestrians walking down that street at that point, we created an arcade that we wanted to delineate. That's why that arcade, that covered arcade that takes care of all the retail, is probably going to be 95% of all pedestrian use on that. And so that the sidewalk itself is kind of going from nowhere to the office building up north. And that street is pretty much consistent with the sidewalk being, I don't want to say nondescript, but it's not like the downtown area where you need to have decorative paving enhancing the storefronts, because that's the only access point for retail. In our case, we're trying to get people off the sidewalk into the building arcade for walking purposes from the parking lots on the north and the south side. So that was sort of what we had talked about with the city engineer as well, is to do the street trees and to be consistent with all the improvements that go up Broadway on that side, because since there's very little pedestrian use. And I agree with the landscaping around the trash enclosure. I'd like to do something whimsical there that would also kind of enhance it as well rather than hide it. It's a good idea.
Marilyn?
I was just gonna ask you, I think one of the charming things about it that existed was the indication of the Vic Stewart, the initials, and that's gone now. So I don't know whether there's a tenant that you might even propose to do,
Right.
or some kind of an emblem of some kind of a railroad emblem, or something that kind of indicates what it was, but it without it, that's just a plain space, and with it, I thought it looked nice.
We actually talked about creating a signage on that chimney that used to be Vic Stewart's sign, to creating something that more was like Walnut Creek Station that would be appropriate for the center.
Right.
On that, rather than having a tenant on that,
Yeah.
is possibly just the name of the
I think
center
that's a very
there,
good
and then
idea.
the appropriate
Right.
tenants would be on a
Right.
program that would be
Well, if it could
consistent.
be, I think that would be a great idea. It gives it a bit of an identification to where you're at.
Right, exactly, and you can see it
And it would
easily.
be nice if it referred to the historic nature of the space.
Right.
But I don't know that could be part of the master sign plan, I'm assuming,
Right.
correct? Right. So that could come later, but I just wanted to be
Right.
sure it was said, because I think that is part of the charm. If you're gonna take this
Sure.
old wonderful building and you're gonna honor its architecture, let's do something that really gives it just a little more
I agree.
identification.
That sign became as prominent as the building.
Right.
Over the years.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
good. Well, then maybe you're gonna move there with it. I didn't see, was there, okay, so that, I'm looking at this back over here, that the colors and the materials are back there on that sign. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Most of my questions were
Right.
taken care of, just a couple of brief ones. It's just curious, are you doing a structural upgrade on the whole building or just the new part?
Probably it has to be something done to the existing building.
Okay.
Because we're doing over 50%.
Some work there? I have to ask you this because of the last person that was here. Are you gonna have a difficulty planing the new roof out with the old roof because it was an old roof and you're putting a new roof into it?
Since most of the new roof is coming up to where the two-story element is,
That's true.
it makes it easier to, I don't want to say hide any discrepancy, but
Discrepancies.
it won't be as much of a linear line because the second floor breaks that up.
New. And it just kind of dovetails on another thing. Do you have a name for the building? Do you have a name for the complex when we say it's in, you said Walnut Station, I'm just wondering, is there a name for the whole project? Are they
We're still
still
discussing it.
developing
This project's been more unique than any project I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
John Harrington is sort of the creator of this center from 45 years ago, and you've seen photographs in your packet of the history that's here, and it's wonderful that he's still alive, that he's here to see this happen, because he took it upon himself years ago to take this building that the city had given up,
Yeah.
and took it upon himself to not only modify and restore it, but to create a landmark that everyone in the city has always loved. It's been in other uses over the years, a brewery and so forth. It's been changed numerous times, been through a lot of recessions and things that happened. I'm glad it's still there. And the building itself is still in great shape. If you look at every other depot in Contra Costa County, and for that more, you know how much millions of dollars it takes just to restore these depots and to bring the heritage back. And this building is in great shape. I mean, the original one, considering the age of it. And he's done a great job of keeping the property clean. The one thing is on the south side, which is any restaurant has I don't want to call it an ugly side of the building, but it does. Restaurants always have a place where you wash off stuff, and that's one of the difficulties. The south side of this building has always been not the best looking because it's the first thing you see when you drive up Broadway. And so now it'll be one of the better parts of the building, because now that's gonna be a major anchor tenant facing the south. And, you're not gonna have the back end of a building. It's, like I say, it's a four-sided building now, which is kind of unusual in the city. Most everyone has just a one-sided or two-sided building, but this is viewed all the way around. So we have to carry the character everywhere and up.
On the way, you said you can use Marvin windows, so I'm assuming you're gonna have the simulated true divided lights when you do the windows, even if it's not Marvin, but it's still gonna be
Yeah.
a real looking.
I like to have them
Not those
match the existing windows that are
Not the-
there now, which
not-
are true divided light.
Yeah, good. That's just a little detail. And on the brick, is it gonna be grouted?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because, yeah, I know in Momo's, it's, since it's a more modern building, it's not grouted, and it looks fine on that building. I just wanted to know if on this one it was.
You gotta be careful with ADA now, that you have to have, the problems I've had with ungrouted brick is a differential settlement over time. It becomes a hazard, and then you end up with lawsuits, so.
Oh, on the ground. I was thinking more of the wall.
Oh, the wall, yeah, I'd like to keep it the same, and so it's consistent, yeah.
Good. And on the porch framing, I'm assuming that you're gonna use like 2x material that's gonna have a rhythm, and you're gonna see it when you look up in the porch. You're not, I mean, when you look, you're doing that big porch.
Oh, you're talking
When
about
you
the
look
ceiling?
up, yeah, you're just gonna have open rafters and painted material up above it.
Yeah, we're gonna have, it's gonna be consistent with what's there now, and to bring the era back. You don't wanna do something that's modern looking, you wanna have it
Yeah.
consistent with what was originally there.
Nice. And then on the trash enclosure, you have doors on all four sides. Is that kind of, or simulated doors on three
Right.
sides? Is that really what like what a switching building would have on it? The four doors, it seem like maybe one side wouldn't have doors and something else, but I'm just curious.
I kind of want to call this a hybrid. This switching, there's so many different kinds of switching houses throughout the United States. They're all different, and the ones that are from the 1870s to the 1910s, wanted to try to create something that's probably not existent anywhere in the country. Because I have to deal with trash enclosure doors on this, I wanted to kind of create something that was unique. I mean, from the roof and the little tower where the guy would stand to the trash enclosure. I mean, it is a trash enclosure, so I'm kind of letting people know it's a trash enclosure, but it's kind of a unique trash enclosure. And in itself, I'm not trying to make it not be something that it isn't.
So I'm getting at, you're saying that in the old days, somebody would have been up there in that space, kind of watching
A lot of
what's
times they
going
would,
on.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
first, when I saw it as a lantern, I didn't realize that, so that's why I was
I know.
asking. Cool, all right.
Right.
That's it for me. Any other questions? Any questions for, any other questions for anybody else on their team? Oh, there it is.
I'm good.
That's cool. None?
There's one for, there's different, these are all the
Okay.
different ones.
And on that note, unless you want to add anything new, we'll.
Just one
Some-
thing, the
yeah,
owner
some
and I,
re-
we've
some
been
real
talking
ones.
about this for as long as the project's been going on. We wanted to get some kind of feedback from the design review board regarding the switching tower in terms of, because again, he's gonna be investing probably 3 to 4 times the in lieu fee for doing that. It's not an inexpensive item. It's not something that you can make a decision on. I just wanted to see if you
Yeah.
give some kind of a recommendation to any help we can get for the Public Art Committee is,
Totally get it.
would be helpful.
Flashing red lights on it, I'm sure.
Anything you
No, just
want.
There's not gonna be
Yeah,
around
there
it.
you go, it'll
Really
move.
cool.
Right.
All right,
15,
Thanks.
no problem, thank you. It's definitely on our list of things to talk about. Okay, at this time, we're gonna open it up to anybody else in the audience who wants to speak on this project. Who wants to add anything? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for comments and a motion.
If you want.
Sure, absolutely.
There was one comment made, which I just want to bring attention to, which is, it's not Broadway Plaza, and I think that's really terrific, actually. I think Broadway Plaza has its own character. It shows a very different side of what truly a shopping center is. It has some architectural interest, of course, but it is not as building. And as we all know, any possibility there ever happens where a historic building can be torn down, it does get torn down. So I would like to say I really commend you and your owner for staying with it and creating something, a new life for this building, because that's why I asked you. There's no restaurant, so it's not going to be the same kind of purpose or use. It's really going to be a piece of architecture that houses businesses, but not the kind of things that restaurants do. So you won't have quite that same sort of movement of the in and out all the time with the cars going in and out. It'll be people that are there shopping for a purpose. So I really think that you're doing a great thing, And I think that the city should be very thrilled with the fact that a historic building like this is staying. I think one of the coolest things you could do, if there's any way to incorporate it, whether it's on the walls or whether it's in, interior spaces or whatever, is to have some of these great photographs available so that it's just part of your dressing up the building. I mean, just if you look around the room and look at these amazing photographs, wouldn't it be great to have something that shows the things we got in our packet and the explanation, or at least to show what it was. And that's just my suggestion to you. If there's some way to hold on to those and blow them up and use them as decorative nature to the building, I'd encourage you to do that. I think it's held its look, but it also has a bit of a fresh look, even though it is the architecture of the past. It really does have a fresh look, and I love to see a very old, wonderful piece of historic architecture right next to the most spectacular modern piece in town. So I think it's a very, very good way to go. Otherwise, we all look like we live in one of those funny towns in what I'm trying to think, where the Alfred Hitchcock movies were, kind of where it's, everything is sort of the same. So I appreciate it. I think that the materials are great. I like the way that you've changed it, and yet you've still honored it. So I'm ready to move ahead with this. Good job.
Moving down the line.
I actually would not call this an historic building. I'd call it a quasi-historic building, and that actually puts you in the worst possible position, because you're not really saving, a serious fabric, which is a hard enough thing to do well enough on its own. This one is actually much harder, and I have really strong feelings about faking the old stuff. And you look at your rendering here, and you look at the original building, and they're not the same, but you've given a lot of that same flavor. You've actually brought the spirit through without faking it. So I think that's fantastic. You've done a terrific job and walked a very fine line. So I mean, that front arcade, not really arcade's not the right word, but that big front porch gives that feeling of the transit, but it's also serving a really nice public function for the public and the use of the building, and it's very attractive. I think the new roof, it's just, a much more sheltering sort of thing. So I would agree with some of the comments and questions that were raised, that I think we need to lower the landscaping around that signal tower, and I thought your suggestion that this was a little bit more of a marker for people who are coming around the corner is a strong argument for it, and in addition to it just being fun. So I appreciate that, and I think also your suggestion for flipping the parking finger aisle makes some sense. Yeah, I'm hugely in favor of this. I think you've done a really good job, and I think you're clearly, enamored of the history of this building and this site, and I think that's something that we all want to cherish. So if you can continue to sort of find a way of educating people as they come through to, what this was, with some of the old photographs, that would be all to the good. As far as the sort of signal tower as public art, you're putting it out on what is not quite, but almost sort of a gateway location for the city, and that's getting to be a larger intersection traffic-wise. I mean, Newell's not a large street, but there's always traffic through there, so I think that's probably actually an appropriate location for it. So I'd kind of recommend that to Public Arts.
I'm in favor of the project with my comments. The only thing I'd like to add is the sidewalk. Just because we're not Broadway or whatever doesn't mean it can't be upgraded. Again, I'm not suggesting pavers or whatever. I'm just saying you're replacing the sidewalk anyway. Let's just not put it back in plain concrete. Whether it's colored, a little bit of sparkle. So again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying pavers and doing a Broadway thing, but again, here's a chance to
It's a nice
take it
special
one
local.
step up than just plain concrete, and that's where I'm going on the sidewalk. But other than that, I'm in favor of the project.
Good How about the art as? Tower?
Again, I mean, we talk about location, that seems like good enough location to me, so.
Okay, perfect. Great, yeah, no, I agree with everybody said. The only sort of little minor things is if the brackets on the west side of the building on the top, they're asymmetrical with the ridge. There's no bracket in the middle, whereas the one that they did on the other side is. And on your south elevation, you may want to look at doing the asymmetrical, just because you don't wind up with a white line in the middle of it over the door. So it's more in keeping with the old building on that side. Very minor. I'm fine with. I like the idea of the tower for the railroad as the art. I mean, I just think it's a nice idea. There was somebody that had some neon signs in his property once out here, and there's by Diablo Country Club, somebody had railroad signs out there, and I think it's a really good idea. So I encourage the Arts Commission to look at this in a different way and see this as a historical piece to add to it, and I think that would be good. As the lighting comes through, I think you really need to pay attention to the color. There's too many buildings I see lately with these garish LED lighting that is just wrong with that kind of style of building. And so how you can, how you can warm it up a little bit and make it work without just overlighting it is going to be important to do. I love the little trash thing at the end. I wanted to rent it as my office, but I guess it's going to be used. Maybe I could be upstairs, but I would look at I would if you consider the 4 elevations differently, because if they're supposed to look like doors and they have plants in front of them, it always looks kind of like an odd thing. So if you're integrating signage and you're coming down the road and it's called whatever it is, and maybe that's integrated into it somehow, I would just look at the 4 elevations as being slightly different and maybe just one with the doors on it, but play with it. I think it's a really fun little building, and I like it a lot.
Disused railroad tracks coming right out. That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And then I like, and the fact you're using the true divided lights and grouting the brick is good. I mean, the big thing, and the other thing I think you've done, I didn't study it completely, but I'm sure your civil is tied in. I know you have steps on the building and all kinds of things that have to work, and I'm assuming you got it to work. And I hope there's no places where you suddenly in the middle, you're off by a foot and you need to adjust it. So I hope everything works, but it looks very clean to me, and I like that. And really the devil's in the details again, and how you detail the top of the brick walls and the little plaques that are in them, and how the lighting works and the handrails is really going to make this building sing. But I think you've done a great job. And I'm glad that you worked well with staff and everybody came together, and we should hear this more often. I love it. So well done. I think it's very well done. So anybody like to make any more comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
But actually, before I do it, I didn't say anything about the public art, and I think really our job, as in the new regulations of public art, is for the location and the scale. That's really what we're supposed to do, but we've also said that's really difficult to do because you don't know what it is, and so we've sort of walked this funny line. But I would see the scale, and depending on whether it's up in the switching area and the location, are both good. So I would make sure that it's included in the report that the commission believes that this is an appropriate way to honor art on this kind of a building, and then see what you can come up with that is acceptable in both sides. But I do think that's a good location for it, and it's also, as Daphne said, it's kind of getting to be more like a sort of a gateway-ish sort of space, and so why not play it up a little bit, and it's good for everyone. So I will move that the Y17045 Walnut Creek Depot building, formerly Vic Stewart's Restaurant, be approved with all notes that we have added to it. And did we talk about any, so staff approval when it comes to lighting, or there's a few things that we want to indicate, or just say as presented?
Well, that can be up to you. You can leave that up to staff to take a look at.
Okay, what about the commissioners?
we've got-
Brian, did you think something about in particular about the lighting that we should note, or it will come back to staff as it normally does? Because it hasn't been indicated yet.
I didn't really have a concern with
Oh, I
lighting,
was
so
like,
I'm okay with it coming back to
You're
staff.
okay with it? Okay, so then,
Yeah, lately I've been okay with it going to staff, and if staff is
okay.
struggling at all with it and has any
Right.
issues, they'll
so
call one of us in.
approved as presented. Any items that need to come back to staff will, and that would be the way we would accept it. Good job, thank you.
Will the maker consider altering the driveway to add the finger island and then upgrading the sidewalk?
Okay, so you want to list those? Ken's writing it down.
And lowering the landscaping, or relooking the landscaping around the little trash enclosure.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
I would, it's gonna be key on the landscape, the sidewalk. I don't, again, nothing too crazy.
I didn't mention that because I don't think they're gonna do that anyway. I don't think they really want to, but,
But Brian's talking about making it
He said-
having it as a suggestion or a requirement, is the
A
question.
requirement, but again, I agree, hopefully I made it plain, I'm not talking about pavers and,
Overly
gold
fancy.
dust or whatever.
Gold dust.
But again, there's
Att-
something
attention.
between that and just plain concrete.
so some kind of an enhancement, but
Right.
nothing in any way garish, just,
It could be just
a
score
little-
lines or maybe
some
some
kind of an
lamp
enhan-
black or something, but.
so a minor enhancement
Minor
might be the way to do it.
enhancement,
Is that fair? Okay, thank you.
I'll second that if you're done with the motion.
I am finished, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Weiss,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Killian.
Yes.
Commissioner Cothran,
Yes.
and Chair Gorney.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
And I do encourage you to put a name on the building. I think it's just
Yeah.
so much nicer when buildings have names, and this particularly really needs one.
Maybe with the word depot in it. I'm kind of
Or
thinking.
station. something.
Or station, or
Yeah.
something like that, that really goes
Not-
back to
not
what it
Broadway
was.
station.
No, not Broadway
Okay, we'll
Station.
give you guys a minute
Forget
and
what
then
he just said.
we'll finishing up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and I'd also like to point out that there is a picture of the depot original.
Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's right over there,
council
right.
chambers,
Yep.
So, thank you all.
Okay, so,
Oh,
Hey, did I see how happy we are with your new landscape architect? You guys had a home run.
good to have him back.
Did you
We
want
couldn't
the
get you,
photos?
so we got
It
him.
won't
No,
get you out of the
Terry-
next one, Terry.
Terry, you have to be careful, he's gonna wanna raise his salary.
but you didn't bring your dog.
The only guy who served more years than me.
I'm gonna keep this.
And he was there a long time.
So fascinating.
It is.
This
Okay,
report was so well done.
do we have any commission considerations today?
Not for me.
No,
None
can we
from
put Phil on a committee?
Which one?
Oh, sorry.
We don't have any committees to put him on.
Let's create one.
What is this, if you miss a meeting, you get on the committee?
Yeah.
I say we put him on all the committees today.
Every
So
committee,
we'll tell him that
I
we
think we
put
need
him.
a
He's the
committee,
al-
a
he's the
study
alternative.
committee, subcommittees.
to
All
figure
the
out new
subcommittees.
committees.
Yeah.
Okay, any commission member staff reports or announcements?
I don't think so. There's gonna be another North Downtown specific plan. I think it's the final meeting, I'm not sure. Is it the 13th
Doubt
of
it.
November? I feel like it is, but I'm not sure if I have it right.
I don't think so.
Thank you, John Harrington.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate all.
Yeah, just nice
I
building.
think it's a
You
great
guys do nice
building,
job.
thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did it.
We've worked on it a long time.
Good. It's gonna be
The
great.
city was gonna tear it down. and then
Just so you know, we're still live
Wait,
on the
we're in the
on
middle
air.
of the,
Yeah,
still in the
we're
meeting.
still live on the air, so if you want to wait a second, we'll be right
We'll
with
be
you.
happy to talk to
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll put your name on it.
No,
Did you have it when it was the railroad station?
I don't think it's our last meeting for North Downtown.
You don't think it's the last one? Okay, it
That was my
has sort of
second job there as a
the way
dishwasher.
she worded it sounded a little
Yes.
like it's
Wishful
finalizing.
thinking.
Wishful thinking. Isn't it the 13th? Is that
Good
correct?
luck.
Did you
Yeah.
just, did you
Yeah.
break?
Okay, that's
And
it. There's another
Or
meeting.
free dinner.
The other thing I was going to mention is that they're repainting the salmon parts of Lyric at
are.
the moment. And so two colors that have been brought in.
Is that what we talked about?
Yeah, the lighter brown color being used around the blue, and then the darker around all the
Yeah.
red. So, again, there's no perfect solution to the issue of the building, but the the owner was willing to paint. So, I think it's going to be an improvement, and I think it just kind of tucks it down
Yes.
a little bit.
Yeah, Joseph and I had a long discussion about it as I sat there in my car looking at it one day and saying, what do you think? And that's kind of the answer we came up to, and I think it will really improve the
That's
overall
the
look.
problem with paint as architecture, isn't it? If 5 years from now they want to paint it pink, do they have to come back from the city or can they repaint it?
Yes, they do, yes.
They do.
Oh,
And I'll mention staff worked with the applicant, the developer, to get those colors corrected. So, props to the developer for working with staff to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple
Great.
meetings, we had several meetings out there, and one of the things that I want to make sure we look at with the city is maybe a process by which,
With large
if
paint
people make
samples.
large
Yes.
changes
We
to
want-
the outside of a
right.
building, we need to know, and if it's significant, it needs to come back to Design Review Commission, because the building also had a lot of significant architectural changes that were approved at staff level. And when you look at the original drawings, you look at what was done, some were better, some I would argue were not. And so I think that it needs to be on a significant downtown buildings in downtown. If it affects the street elevation, it probably needs to come back to Design Review Commission or at least some kind of a subcommittee to say that needs to come back. Because it's the difficulty is during construction, it needs to, they come with it and we need to know now. So it needs to be a fast turnaround on those things to come back. But they also need to know that they need to think it through and not make changes. And so we're looking at a policy change in the city on that.
Okay, great.
Anything else?
Let's see, I had
Sir?
requested some information from all of you by email, so just
yeah.
get back to me when you can on that.
If the answer is 0, is that a good enough of an answer?
That's probably fine.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
I'll email you that.
Let's adjourn.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Maybe this should have been conditioned consent.